I will now call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Texas Alamos College District. Trustees present, Ms. Alejandra Aldrete, Ms. Delia Sainz, Dr. Tony Zabaleta, Mr. J.J. De Leon, Ms. Adela Garza, and Ms. Eva Alejandro. Also present is our President, Jesus Roberto Rodriguez. And number 2, Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Zabaleta, will you lead us?
Yes, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3 on the agenda. Public comments. No public comments. Item number 4, President's Report. Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair Herrera, Board of Trustees. I'm happy to report that TSC's Fine Arts instructor, Robert Andes, was one of this year's winning artists in the Texas Association of Schools of Art Virtual Art Exhibition. Mr. Andes claimed second place for this painting titled A Sense of Silent Contemplation. His submission was one of 80 pieces that were submitted by the virtual exhibition called Unmasked 2021, a virtual exhibit of Texas art faculty. Submissions were received from public and private colleges and universities across the state, including South Texas College and UTRGV, to Texas A&M and SMU, and as far as west as El Paso Community College. Isn't this a great piece of art?
Yes.
And I think it deserved first place, even though it got second place. But in my opinion, he should have gotten first. Last year, Mr. Andes won third place for a piece called Santa Fe Woman, which was a painting inspired by a photograph he took during one of his trips to New Mexico. I would like to congratulate Mr. Andes, who's joining us here, for his recognition of his work and for his dedication and commitment to our students. Andes.
Do you have a picture of the last year's?
Do you have the picture of last year by any chance, Frank? No. We'll send it to the trustees, so you'll have it.
Beautiful work.
Thank you so much for representing Texas Southmost and thank you.
Beautiful. I'm also pleased to announce that the Commission on Accreditation for Respiratory Care has approved the scheduling of an on-site review for TSC's respiratory care program. The approval came after the review of a self-study report prepared by TSC Dean of the Division of Health Professions, Dr. David Pierce, and TSC Respiratory Care Program Director, Mr. Isidro Ramirez. The on-site review visit, in person or virtual, is tentative for the spring or fall of 2022. I do want to congratulate Dr. Pierce and Mr. Ramirez, as well as their team, for their continued hard work and efforts in preparing the self-study report and advancing the respiratory care program in their accreditation process, which is a great indication of the fine work and the quality of education we're providing to our students. On October 29th, TSC held the Haunted House drive-through around the TSC main campus for students, faculty, staff, and the families and community members. I want to recognize Trustee Alejandra Aldrete for participating in the event and supporting our students. Thank you, Trustee Aldrete. Now, during the Haunted House drive-through, attendees drove around to 6 different stations around campus and were treated to a goodie bag at the end of the tour. It was a great turnout with several hundred students and community members and families showing off their Halloween costumes and decorated vehicles. There were 244 cars, and we counted 861 people that participated in this event.
Wonderful.
And 2 dogs.
And 2 dogs.
Those are your dogs.
So thank you, Student Services, Student Life, and all the divisions that helped us put this together. The TSC celebrated the cultural tradition of Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, on November 2nd. I was joined by TSC Board Chair Ruben Herrera, past Board Chair Adela Garza, Trustee Alejandra Aldrete for the parade down the Paseo, and we were also joined by Trustee Delia Sainz for the main event held on the grounds of the Jacob Brown. Thank you, trustees. That meant a lot, your participation to us. The celebration was highlighted by students' presentations about their personal experience during Dia de los Muertos, as well as the recognition of the 21st Century Community Learning Center student projects. Once again, want to thank Dr. Leslie Meyer, her students, the Division of Humanities and Student Services for keeping this tradition alive and celebrating the culture of our communities. I was invited to attend the RGV Partnership Annual Golf Tournament in Weslaco on November 5th, along with representatives from other institutions of higher education in the Rio Grande Valley. The tournament raises money for scholarships to help promote higher education for the students in the RGV. TSC has been a recipient of scholarship funds raised by this tournament and has been able to match the funds with Workforce Solutions and the TSC Foundation. This last amount was approximately $40,000 that were raised in order to support our students with the combination of all the contributions. I also attended the high school football between Harlingen Cardinals and Brownsville Hannah Eagles on Friday, November 5th. I was honored to do the coin toss before the game at Bogus Stadium in Harlingen. We also had a team of recruiters at the game who were set up with a booth, and they talked to prospective students and their parents. You may also have seen me grooving with the Hannah Eagles band on the
Tick-tocking. And the cheerleader.
So we had a great time. November the 9th, I joined Brownsville ISD for an industry workshop with our partner, Paragon VTOL Aerospace, along with the BISD superintendent and other Brownsville leadership. I provided brief remarks before 600 students from grades 8 to 11th grade at the Brownsville Event Center. The event was capped off with the presentation by Dwight Smith, founder and chief visionary officer of Paragon VTOL Aerospace. And I think we made the front page of the Brownsville Herald. That was really nice. We held the Autumn Mental Health Awareness Conference on November the 10th, in which many topics were covered on the power of self-care. Trustees Delia Sainz and Eva Alejandro joined me at the event, and I want to thank you, the trustees, for their participation and support. Students attended free conference to gain mental health awareness, discover resources, and learn how to manage and cope with the stresses of daily life. For the 9th year, TSC honored the brave men and women of our armed forces during the Veterans Day ceremony held on November 11th at the TSC Performing Arts Center. I was joined by past board chair, Mrs. Adela Garza, who shared some remarks about her late husband and brother's military service. And de todo corazón, thank you, Madam Chair, for sharing those. TSC's Associate Vice President of Operations and veteran himself, Mr. Jaime Salazar, was the keynote speaker of the ceremony in honor of our veterans. TSC Associate Vice President of Instruction, Dr. Angelica Fuentes, participated as a panelist for the Region 1 Gear Up Building Leadership for College and Readiness Institute on November 12. Dr. Fuentes was part of the higher education panel that shared information about the efforts institutions of higher education are making to ensure students are successful in their post-secondary pursuits, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Dr. Fuentes, for representing TSC at this event. On Friday, November the 12th, and Saturday, November the 13th, I was able to meet with former TSC graduates to take photos with them. These students graduated when we held virtual commencement ceremonies in 2020 and the spring of 2021, and did not take a photo on the stage with their cap and gown. We dressed in our regalia and we took photos on the stage at the Jacob Brown Auditorium, as well as with family members who joined them for some of our students. I do want to thank, once again, Student Services for coming up with the idea and coordinating with the students, and also our Media Services team for setting up the stage and lights for commencement photos that these graduates will share with their friends and families. On Saturday, November the 13th, 3 TSC teams representing facilities, humanities, and student services gathered to play in a round-robin tournament of softball. I threw out the first pitch, and just for the record, it was a strike.
Seguramente.
The student service teams were the winners, defeating both facilities and humanities to take the top trophy. Congratulations to student services, and according to the records and statistics, the MVP was our very own Vice President, Luis Villarreal. But fortunately, no one was injured and all were able to report to work on Monday. Good thing. Now, our Vice President of Instruction, Dr. Joanna Kyle, has been invited to be included in a book titled Higher Education Entrepreneur and Success Stories. The author, Mary Darden, will conduct a series of interviews with Dr. Kyle during the first week of December of 2021. Kudos to Dr. Kyle for being recognized for her work. We are fortunate to have Dr. Kyle as a member of our TSC team. Dr. Kyle has been instrumental in building the college instructional division, both on the credit side and the workforce training. Thank you, Dr. Kyle, for your dedication and leadership. Now, we've begun to prepare for the fall 2021 commencement ceremony, which is scheduled for Saturday, December 11th at the Jacob Brown Auditorium. Due to the number of graduates, we'll be holding two ceremonies, one at 10 a.m. and the other at 2 p.m. Our commencement speaker is Mr. Jose Borjon, a Brownsville native. Mr. Borjon grew up in South Mose and is a TSC alumnus. Mr. Borjon is currently the Senior Policy Advisor for Atkin, Gum, Strauss, Howard, and Felt, LLP, in Washington, D.C. He has 12 years of experience on Capitol Hill, having worked for and with Congressmen Vicente Gonzalez, Filemon Vela, Pete Gallegos, Silvestre Reyes, Henry Cuellar, and Salomon Ortiz. We are excited to hear his remarks on December 11th.
Very good.
Good. As you are aware, we had a successful 95th anniversary kickoff event on October the 30th at the TSC Performing Arts Center. It was a spectacular evening for the community members, students, faculty, and staff. The feedback that we received from our guests was that the event was a hit. Everyone enjoyed the food, the giveaways, and entertainment, especially the dazzling firework displays we had. I want to thank the Board of Trustees for their continued support, dedication, from planning stages all the way to their attendance in the event. It's an anniversary that will not be forgotten. And here's a little short video that recaps the 95th anniversary celebration.
TSC students, alumni, faculty, staff, and community gathered to celebrate Texas Southmost College and its 95 years of excellence in higher education. This is only the first of many events that will take place throughout the year to celebrate this historic milestone.
It's wonderful to see so many Scorpions here tonight.
It is important for us to host this event tonight, to bring our community together, and to thank you for your support of Texas Southmost College.
Celebrating today is the rebirth of TSC. We had a dream to make this the most amazing community college, and I think we can say that today.
I saw it as a vote to save TSC, so I'm extremely proud of what this community college has become.
The first recognition that I would like to share is from the office of Governor Greg Abbott. Your commitment to excellence in education has helped you achieve success, and your accomplishments will be mirrored in the achievements of your students for generations to come. I have a letter of congratulations from Senator Ted Cruz to share. Texas Southmost College is truly an example for all in the way it is preparing the hearts and minds of students to fulfill the world's intellectual and workforce needs.
TSC is a beacon of higher education for the Rio Grande Valley and a credit to the state of Texas.
For nearly a decade, I have seen firsthand the dedication and commitment that this institution has in its leaders, and that is reflected in the successes of their students.
Here's to many more years of Texas Southmost College.
We have one more congratulatory recognition to share tonight, and that is from the President of the United States, the Honorable Joe Biden. I send my warmest congratulations as you mark the 95th anniversary of Texas Southmost College and its Board of Trustees. By continuing to educate and nurture students, institutions like yours will move our nation forward to lead in the 21st century.
It was a spectacular event, so thank you to everyone that helped put this together.
There's only 2 pictures of me. I'm kidding.
So before I conclude my report, I would like Vice President Luis Villarreal to provide an update on the U.S. Department of Education program review. You may recall that he did provide a status report during last month's board meeting, and we'll do a quick follow-up on it.
Thank you, President Rodriguez, Mr. Herrera, and the Board of Trustees. As Dr. Rodriguez just said, I did give an update of our final review of the financial aid program last month. And in that final review, I told you that there were only 3 of the 12 findings which contain liabilities to the institution. 2 of those are of the kind we cannot cure because they involve reports that we did not provide in the time frame we were supposed to. We've rectified that with our new processes and procedures. But I also told you that in finding number 2, we had a liability back to the Department of Education in the amount of $72,000 plus. As part of the response that was due on November 15th, the team had to get back together and re-reconcile all of the amounts that we owed to the Department of Education on a spreadsheet, and they did some work. And in the process of doing that, discovered that the team that provided the data back in 2019 had actually submitted some errors, and the errors are actually in our favor. So it turns out we owe less to the Department of Education than we originally reported, so to the tune of about $2,900 less than the principal that we owed. So as it turns out, what I reported to you in October was not entirely correct, because since we had to reconcile and provide that back to the Department of Education, and we had this conversation with them, we actually have to appeal. Because we're basically saying we don't owe you $72,000, we owe you $69,000, right? So we have no choice but to appeal, and so we have submitted that appeal to the Department of Education. It's in our favor. They may still come back and say, you owe us $72,000, we do not agree with your reconciliation, but in anticipation, we anticipate that they will say, yes, you owe us $69,000. So again, it's a new team that went back and reviewed the data that was provided by the old team and found some errors. And they're pretty small. They involve 24 different students. Some of the amounts are very small, $6, $5. There was one student that constituted the bulk of it because they never actually received the financial aid. That's what happened. That when, at the time of the report, looked like they were going to get the financial aid. 2 years later, we get the report back from the DOE, and now we find that those students, those 24 students, never actually were awarded the money in the first place. So that's why we have to appeal. So that's the update. Wanted to make sure that we discussed this with the board so you had full disclosure, and then we go from there. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Before we conclude the presentation, I'll turn it over to Dr. Zabaleta.
Yes, thank you. Just a very brief announcement. I've placed in front of you 2 copies. Very proud to give you copies of the 18th volume of Studies in Rio Grande Valley History. We began this process, this project, in the 1980s, and it's had ups and downs, and various administrators have tried to kill it, but it just has not died, and today it represents, it's true, it represents the longest, you can imagine who, right?
I just had one guess.
I don't have to.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, no, not you. The longest running Texas history project in the state is this volume. If anybody out there in the audience that would like a copy, there are copies available in the president's office. They're free.
Thank you.
And we're very, very proud of it. And we've already started soliciting articles in both English and Spanish from Texas and beyond and Mexico for volume 19. So if you know somebody who might want to submit something, please do. Anyway, enjoy. Thank you, Doctor.
Chair Herrera, trustees, this concludes my report. I want to thank everyone for their hard work and dedication in helping move Texas Southmost College forward. Thank you.
Thank you, President Rodriguez. Item number 5, consideration possible action on the minutes of the following meetings. Approve October 21st, regular meeting October 21st, 2021, and special meeting October 27th, 2021. I will consider a motion on approving the minutes for the regular meeting of October 21st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Motion passes. Next item is approval of the minutes of the special meeting of October 27th, 2021. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? Motion passes. Item number 6, Academic Committee. Mr. De Leon, will you present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Academic Committee met on Tuesday, November the 9th, 2021. The committee discussed the following items. Item 6A, consideration and possible action to approve an amended clinical affiliation agreement with Doctors Hospital at Renaissance. Dr. Joanna Kyle, Vice President of Instruction, and Dr. David R. Pierce, Dean of Health Professions, will present this item.
Thank you, sir. Chair Herrera, board members, President Rodriguez. What you have before you is an amendment to a standing clinical affiliation agreement with Doctors Hospital at Renaissance for all of our healthcare programs. If you remember, the DHR affiliation agreement was renewed in August, and then we added the new site of DHR at Brownsville later. But what you have before you is simply an addendum, an addition regarding the pandemic situation and the requirements of our students to have appropriate PPE.
I move to approve the clinical affiliation amendment with Doctors Hospital at Renaissance for the Health Professions Program and authorize President Rodriguez to sign the agreement.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this concludes my report.
I want to pause a little bit and go back to item 5A and 5B. I don't think we voted on them.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, we're going to bring that up, Mr.
Yes.
President.
In item 5A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting, there was a motion on the floor. There was a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. On item 5B, there was approval of the minutes of the special meeting of October 27, 2021. There is a motion, there is a second, no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. I apologize. Next item is item number 7, Finance Committee. I will call on Ms. Garza to present the item.
I want to go back to the 95th celebration. I don't think we've said thank you to everybody that was involved and that made this possible. Because my God, it took a lot of people. And I saw everybody out there. And I know it was exhausting. And from the bottom of my heart, because this meant a lot to me, I want to thank you and thank everybody that was involved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for making it happen.
All those who concur with Ms. Garza signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The Finance Committee met on Wednesday, November the 10th, 2001. Really?
2001.
Boy, you took me back 20 years. 2021, the committee discussed the following. We're going to go 7A, monthly financial report for the month ending September the 30th, 2021.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, President Rodriguez, I have for you the September budget to actual report for the college. I'll begin on this first slide. As I customarily say, there are three types of funds that we adopt a budget for. So I'll very briefly go over each of those funds and cover the revenues and the expenditures for the month of September. This is a new fiscal year, so we're going to have a brand new activity to start off the year with. And as you have seen before, the report is in a similar format. We have descriptions for the activity on the left, and then we have columns with the dollar amounts that follow that. My presentation will mainly focus on the September column, which are the numbers for the activity for this month. So on this first slide, we begin with general fund, and we have revenue. We have a subtotal at the bottom of that slide, $7,498,917. That is total revenue for September for general fund. If we go to the following slide, we start our expenditure categories. And we have subtotals for education and general fund, salary and wages. In the middle of the slide, $1,227,000 for September. That category is followed by benefits, which can be seen towards the bottom of that slide. There is a subtotal there for $366,000. Moving on to the next slide, we have the M&O category that runs through this slide onto the next slide and concludes at the bottom of this slide here. We have a subtotal for $926,000 for the month of September. We move on to the next slide. We have subtotals for travel and general institutional. Towards the top of the page, we have a subtotal for $2,000 in travel and $118,000 for general institutional at the bottom of that slide. So move on to the last slide that covers general fund. So at the second to the bottom row there, we have a subtotal for all expenditures in general fund, and that is $2,893,000, and that covers both revenue and expenses for general fund. The next slide is where we have the auxiliary fund, which is the two of the three funds that I'll cover. We begin with revenue. We have a subtotal in the middle of the slide, $692,000, that is revenue for the auxiliary fund. Move on to the next slide. We have two subtotals, $71,000 for salaries and wages, and at the bottom of the slide, $19,000 for benefits. We move on to the next slide. We're still in auxiliary fund, and this is the subtotal for M&O. At the bottom of this slide, we have a subtotal for the month of September, $37,000. Moving on to the last slide for auxiliary fund in expenditures. Second to the last row, $128,000. That is all expenditures in auxiliary fund, and that covers both revenue and expenditures for auxiliary fund. And moving on to the last fund, which is our general obligation and revenue bonds. And we have both revenue and expenditure subtotals on these slides. We have revenue first on this slide, a subtotal of $35,000, which you can see there. And on the next slide, we have a $0 expenditure subtotal. There are no bond payments that we make in this month. We generally make those in the month of February and the month of August. So when those months come around, we'll see activity in those slides. That concludes the revenue and expenditure activity for all three of the funds that we adopt a budget for. And the remainder of the slides are our additional detail slides. We have health benefit detail for both general fund and auxiliary on this slide. We can see those subtotals, $184,000 and $10,000 respectively for general fund and for auxiliary. And the last section of the report, Mr. Chairman, we have our debt service tables. These tables are updated for the new fiscal years. So for the new fiscal year, So these reflect the new debt service amounts that we will see for each of those bonds that we have outstanding, sir. And with that, I'll conclude my report, Mr. Chairman. If there are any questions, I'd like to take the opportunity to try and answer those.
This item was for information purposes only. No action is required if there's no questions. We'll go into 7B. Update on grants awarded to Texas Southmost College for the month of October 2021. Dr. Figueroa?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Chairman Herrera, members of the board, President Rodriguez. Before you, we have the grants report for the month of October. We received during the month of October one grant from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, the modernization grant, and this is to assist the college with that new reporting for $50,000. We also, for this year, as a recap of what we've done year to date, we have the listing of the grants received during the month of September and adding that October one for a total of $729,000. Are there any questions?
If there's no question, this was for information purposes only. 7C, Institutional CARES Act Expenditures Report.
Yes, ma'am.
Pero,
Yes, ma'am. Before you have the new revamped CARES reports, this first slide has the previous balance of expenditures we've done with CARE funds and the new expenditures, which is $1.5 million during the month of October. We also have the detail of that $1.5 million for you review per item as we've been doing with the other report, except we're only bringing new data.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
okay, let me just say that we met on Wednesday, November the 10th, 2021, and present with Ms. Alejandra and myself. And this concludes my report. I'll transfer this to Mr. Herrera.
I have an item that I would like to present. Is consideration possible action on the passing of a resolution to vote on position 8 of the Cameron Appraisals District Board of Directors. I will call Mr. Peña to give us a brief presentation on this item.
Would you like me to read the resolution, Mr. Chairman?
I would rather a brief presentation on it and what the resolution says in
Certainly.
plain English.
As the board is probably well aware, we are included in the small school districts with the appraisal district, in which there are 8 small districts that get to vote on representation. And as being included in the small districts, we seldom, if ever, have had a representative on the appraisal district as a director. We have undertaken discussions about having that resolved so that Texas Southmost College would have its own representative apart from the small school districts, because we are in fact a much larger entity. We cover much larger territory than any of the school districts, certainly more than the small school districts. And as a result of that, we should have our own member, one of our own members, sitting on that appraisal district. To that effect, I've prepared a letter recommending that the appraisal district by resolution adopt a resolution that allows Texas Southmost College to appoint its own member to the appraisal district. There is nothing in the statutory language that does not allow the appraisal district board of directors to do that. And so I think that would be in the best interest of the college in order for us to be able to make sure that the college maintains its presence and a seat at the table when appraisals are done throughout Cameron County.
Thank you.
And it affects us. It affects the college because appraisals, we collect taxes based on appraisals.
I'm going to propose a motion to approve the resolution to vote Ms. Adela Garza for position 8 of the Cameron Appraisal District Board of Directors.
Second.
Are we going to read the resolution first?
Yeah, read the resolution.
Oh, you want me to read it? I'm sorry. I'm getting hard of hearing, I think. Resolution.
I'd like to see what it says.
Resolution. Whereas the Texas Southmost College, along with 7 other school districts in Cameron County, is represented by 1 board member sitting as position 8 on the Cameron Appraisal District Board of Directors, and whereas each of the 8 school districts represented by this director shall have the opportunity to vote for the representative of its choice for the period commencing January 2022, and whereas the candidate receiving the greatest number of votes will hold director position 8, now therefore be it resolved this, the 18th day of November 2021, that the Board of Trustees of the Texas Southmost College District do hereby cast our vote for Mrs. Adela Garza to hold position 8 of the Cameron Appraisal District Board of Directors, approved and adopted this, the 18th day of November 2021.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there?
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion on this item?
I'm told, does this mean that we're already accepted to put her in that position? No, they have to accept it.
It always happens that there are 8 small school districts,
Yes.
and they meet all the time, and they're compadres and comadres, or they're co-workers, and they lobby, and they designate or propose one of their own. So we'll never have a chance because we don't get to have any kind of meetings with them or any,
Representation, but so does this give us that opportunity to have one person, or does this make it official?
no, this is a vote.
This is a vote, so it's our vote. It's our vote, one vote.
But it doesn't.
They-
But we won't
Do they
get
have
to
to
vote.
approve?
No.
Oh, they do not.
Yo,
It's
ufas.
automatic.
They all submit their
I
vote.
thought that this would allow us to, no.
We're just one
Chairman.
vote.
We're just
Mr.
one
Chairman.
vote, and we
So,
never get
in-
more than
in
one.
order for Ms. Garza to be appointed to the Cameron Appraisal District, we will need 4 more of the school districts to vote in her favor in order for her to be elected.
Okay. That's just,
We're voting for her to be the candidate.
yes.
Got it.
Candidate.
And
Casting the vote.
Okay.
And when do
I-
we find out
So
the
can I check here,
results?
Adela Garza?
It is amazing because I did talk to the judge and nobody seems to think that it's important that we have representation. This is what, we've always done it that way. And I said, yeah, but we're tired of it. I mean, we want our own representative.
And who's it, Judge? We're bigger than BISD.
Huh?
We're bigger than BISD, and they have their own representation, their own representative.
Yes, and
Our taxing district is bigger.
yes,
So we're lumped in
with the small schools. And it was done like that for no reason, and they just have to undo it.
I will now take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Yes. Dr. Chapman?
Yes.
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
I don't see it.
Item number 9, Facilities Committee, Ms. Deli.
We're 8, no?
What about 8?
8, I apologize. I'll call on Dr. Zavaleta.
Thank you very much. On the Student Services Subcommittee of the Texas Southmost College Board of Trustees met on Tuesday, November 10th. We had one item, which was informational. Ms. Aldrete had an excused absence, work-related absence, and I call upon Luis Villarreal to, basically the item was the intramural programs, health and wellness report, and he'll give us an overview.
Thank you, Dr. Zavaleta, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rodriguez, and Board of Trustees. This will be a brief presentation on one of the areas that we are kind of unsung heroes here at
yes, that is
Texas Southern, right? You may know, later this year, I'll be doing a more thorough probably presentation on intramural sports when we have a little more to tell. But I was curious to see what we were doing during the pandemic, and it's kind of interesting, right? That because the pandemic hit in the middle of the last school year, we had to make adjustments to take things that were normally events that were happening in the rec center and turn them into virtual remote events. And I just wanted to call attention to the good work that Miss Tiffany Hernandez and Mr. Gilberto Lopez do in the rec center to convert all that stuff so that our students can continue to feel engaged. So just so you know, they were holding FIFA soccer tournaments virtually, Madden football tournament virtually, and NBA 2K tournaments virtually, and you can see that they did get some participation. They also were able to create an ESPN Fantasy Football League that had 30 participants back in the fall of 2020, and also introduced something called Kahoot Trivia into the classrooms and some of the departments, which is a trivia software that they can use to do custom questions in classrooms about the materials that the faculty are covering and stuff like that, and then award prizes and swag and stuff like that in an attempt to continue to engage the students. So as you can see, they hosted 4-person sports leagues. And then again, because of the COVID adjustments, they had to start looking at new alternatives like Kahoot to bring engagement into the classroom. Total participations in fall were 1812, and you can see the impact of COVID, where we had less participation in the fall of 2020. And you can see some of the pictures of the award-winning students that participated in those fantasy leagues. Spring 2021, very similar, right? Except that you don't have some of those sports available in the spring. So they had a Madden football tournament in the spring where we had a little more participation, continue to do the Kahoot trivia in the classroom and in some of the departments to challenge our students to test their knowledge on fun stuff, but also academic related stuff. And again, the semester comparison between spring 2021 and spring 2020, you can see that obviously it's much more difficult to engage the students remotely or virtually, right? We had 944 participations in spring 2020 and about a third of that in 2021. And it really highlights the impact of engagement in terms of fulfilling our students' experience at the college, right? More t-shirts awarded, as you can see. But on the health and wellness side, there's a little more activity because it's easier to produce that on a virtual manner, right? So in fall 2020, the department created these virtual experiences called Mindful Monday, Terrific Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, Trending Thursday, and Fit Friday, right? In an effort to continue to engage the students either by talking about health and wellness mentally or physically, engaging them to continue to try to remain fit, even though they were quarantined in their homes, like most of us were, right? And we all felt the effect, right? So they use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Again, we can spend more time on what those individual metrics mean. But essentially, we would reach 40,000 students, for example, on the Facebook side. Then there was about 5,900 of those actual engagements where students got involved and clicked in. And the clicks represent where they clicked a yes or no or submitted some information regarding to the engagement, right? And so on and so forth with Instagram and Twitter. We also use TikTok, YouTube, and Pinterest, right? So in the fall, you can see the difference in the Commit to Fit program that we do on-site versus remotely, right? It's just difficult to get people to engage remotely. 734 participations in the fall of 2019. 62 in fall of 2020. They did a turkey trot. This is all virtual. Normally, they invite students onto the campus to use the treadmills to run races, and then we award turkeys to them. This was all virtually, very much honor system kind of stuff, and you can see they still awarded turkeys to the students that finished in top positions, right? That turkey trot, by the way, is going on right now. I think tomorrow's the last day. Get your entries in, right? Challenges, United We Step. They continue to do this challenge as a fitness challenge, but it was all virtual, right? So everybody was submitting their own data. There wasn't gatherings at the rec center or anything like that. And it involved faculty, staff, and students. And you can see those. Some of those are award winners. I see Monica Pierce, who's our grant writer. Dr. Oberath is a walking fiend. And Gabriel Picasso is on there as well. And I say that because I couldn't catch Deborah Oberath this year. I can tell you that. And then health and wellness webinars. Tiffany is the lady on the upper right there, and Gilbert is the gentleman pictured in this webinar. Those are the two architects of most of the stuff that happened last year remotely for health and wellness and also intramurals, right? So very proud of those two individuals for continuing to work to engage our students. And I think Mr. Ponce would agree, we learned some things going remote, just like we did on the academic side of the house, right?
Yeah.
We learned that you can deliver some services and maybe extend some of our engagements to be virtual and remote, even when we return to campus. Spring 2020, very similar. We had less engagements than we did in the fall, and you can see there was a continuing dwindling of engagement during the pandemic, as I think students got tired of coming into Zoom and got tired of logging in and that kind of thing. Less participation in the spring on the fitness side as well. But we continue to try. And so they continue to do the Commit to Be Fit contest, and also did things like Be My Fit Valentine through TikTok. I don't know that much about TikTok, but I hear it's a good time.
I remember.
And so they were trying to engage the students by letting them do fitness challenges using TikTok. The United We Step Challenge continues. There are some of the award winners that happened in the spring of 2021. And then finally, they did much more than what I'm representing today. But some of the things they do are like the domestic violence webinar, which is crucially important to encourage our students to be aware of the safety and what we do for them to make sure that they're mentally and physically healthy on campus and as scorpions in our college, right? The good news here is that we're returned to campus. And as a member of the Rec Center now, and one of the honors of being involved in student services, I get to see a lot of the hard work they do. And the Rec Center is booming, right? Yeah. All kinds of volleyball, dodgeball, all that kind of stuff happening. Those students seem to be engaged, and they're doing a great job at the Rec. I don't know if Mr. Ponce wants to add anything, but I just wanted to make you aware, kind of set the table, because later this year, we're going to tell you all the cool stuff that's happening on campus, now that we're back. And we're back, baby. We're back. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. How many actual participants in person were there at the mental health conference?
I believe there were 80 Zoom participants up there and 46 YouTube views. So they do recordings and they post them on YouTube so somebody can go back and pull it up. So I believe those are the stats that I was given.
Okay, thank you.
And Manuel Matias, that 1.5, what is it, million, right?
Steps, yeah.
Steps. Where did he go?
Where did they go?
Where did he go? I mean, how much is that in miles?
Well, in miles, that's wow, 27 million steps is, let's see, carry the two.
Probably walk several
divide by
miles a day.
Times pi. Basically, you divide by, if you, 2,000 steps is roughly a mile by the normal cadence of an average person. I know because I did the United We Step Challenge this year. 4th place, might add, but I couldn't catch Deborah Overath. I don't care what I did.
The last question is, when do we start instituting the Taco Tuesday?
I saw here
Now,
Friday
Chairman
foodie,
Herrera, we're
free
talking about
Friday.
health and fitness here. And you want to go to Taco too? Well, we'll do vegan tacos.
Cahoots to Manuel
Thank you so
Matias.
much.
That's a
You're
lot.
welcome. I lost him right there. All right, thank you all for your attention.
Kudos.
Does that conclude your report, Dr. Savala?
It certainly does.
Item number 9, Facilities Committee. I'll call on Ms. Simon.
The Facilities Committee met on Wednesday, November 10th, 2021. The committee discussed the following items: consideration and possible action on award RFP 22-03 for theatrical equipment replacement. I call on Dr. Gisela Figueroa to present.
Thank you, Ms. Sands. Chairman Herrera, members of the board. Before you, we have RFP 2203. This is for theatrical equipment replacement. Just like in any other of our RFPs, we follow the same set of events where we publish our RFP. We have a pre-proposal conference, invite the potential bidders to come and look at the actual spaces, submit that RFP. We took it to the TSC board committee, and then today we're bringing it here to you. The way we structure this RFP is with 2 options, option A and option B. Option A is a result of the audit that was done on both the rigging of the Jacob Brown and the TSC Performing Arts Center. After that safety audit, we discovered that there are some needs to do some repairs in both areas. So that is what is necessary at this time, and we put it as option A. Option B, it's an alternate proposal that can be included, which is the stage lighting system at the Jacob Brown Auditorium. One of the things I want to mention is that the rigging and the stage lighting are the same age as the Jacob Brown Auditorium, so it's the original equipment. And some of the challenges that we're having is that we are having some trouble finding light bulbs and replacements for the lighting system. Although it's not a crucial safety need as the rigging, it is important that we brought it together for your consideration and possible action on it. These are just some pictures of the rigging at the Jacob Brown and what will be replaced with the new rigging, as well as the TSC Performing Arts Center. And this is the stage lighting that we currently have at the Jacob Brown. So when the scope of work, as I mentioned, it included both pieces, the one that is that safety need on option 8, plus the alternate that includes that stage lighting system. So the proposal went out and we received one proposal for this specific job. And the Jacob Brown rigging, it's a total of $340,300. The Performing Arts Center is $54,645. So base proposal A for the rigging of both the Jacob Brown and the TP Performing Arts Center is $358,945. The alternate, or the second part, which is the lighting system, is $281,650. So together, it's $640,545. The RFP criteria, which was, it's the normal criteria that we use, although we only had one qualified response for this. If we're putting, again, for your consideration, either option 8 or B, and both options will be paid through the current fiscal year budget. As you might recall, this was an expense that we were anticipated, and we rolled money from last year to this year to pay for this.
It seems to me, I recall that not exactly when, but less than 10 years ago, we did this. We replaced all the curtains and the rigging and the lighting, and here we are again spending more than $500,000. And I want to know if we have had a professional evaluate the condition of that equipment.
I think we replaced the curtains.
Excuse me?
We replaced the curtains. I remember that.
Yeah, and the lights. And the lights. We repaired the lights.
I don't think so.
Well, I remember.
Oh.
Do you remember?
The light bulbs can be found, right? Because it's an old equipment.
Well, stick with the curtain.
Huh?
We did that.
I remember the curtains. I don't.
Mr. Pacero, you were here, and you were in charge of the monies. Speak now.
Was there
I think
I remember, Adela, I remember there were
We'll find out.
lights that are up on the top.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, President
You did
Rodriguez.
all
I do recall the curtains as well. I wish I was with the institution 10 years ago, sir, but I do not date back that far. But I do recall the curtains being replaced.
Well, thank you. The curtain, for sure.
The curtains, yes, but the rigging is the actual system that holds the curtain. We do have a representative from the company. We did get an official inspection of the rigging before we engage into the RFP. And I have the representative from the company can specify what I'm mentioning. So the rigging is how you hang the curtains. We're not replacing the curtains this time, just the rigging.
No, I was here 10 years ago.
And it's dangerous to keep that rigging because it could fail at any moment.
Yeah.
Well, sure.
Let me have Mr. Morris shed some light on this. No pun intended.
Thank you all. Mr. Chair, trustees, Mr. President. Yes, we replaced all of the stage curtains at the Jacob Brown Auditorium. And that project was just for the curtains. They were all ripped, they were torn, they were no longer flame retardant.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I remember.
Because
we had a different precedent, and that's all we could do, the curtains. I remember. I remember.
Is there a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Yes, we still have the same lighting as we've had for decades.
10 years ago, you weren't on
Well,
the,
my question, I mean, I remember that we had done some of that work, maybe not all of it.
but Dr. Salas, you weren't on the board 10 years ago?
No, I was the administrator that was in charge of it.
10 years ago?
Excuse me? Yes, absolutely, 10 years ago.
You were still,
Excuse me?
that's when we separated, no?
Well, so now you're questioning my memory,
No, no, I'm not questioning your memory. I'm
which would be maybe a valid thing to
No,
do.
no, the timing.
Well, I don't know about the time. I just know that,
Let me go back to Dr. Figueroa. You have a representative from the company?
Yes, sir.
You have 1 minute to give us a brief 1-minute presentation. What you said.
Oh my gosh.
I was wondering who that gentleman was. I said, we have a spectator watching the,
My name's Roy Harleen. I'm with Texas Scenic Company.
This is how the sausage is made here.
I've actually was involved with the Performing Arts Center construction that happened in 2008, 2009, and
10 years ago.
it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And a number of years ago, we did I was involved with replacing the curtains at the Jacob Brown. There was no rigging replacement at that time. The rigging system that is there, I don't know the exact age of it, but it is definitely more than 20 years, probably close to 30 years old. The lighting system, I believe, is from the research that we were able to do, is probably about 1995 for the most of the rigging control system. The fixtures are from probably the 70s or 80s as well at the most.
And so I can't hear you, but so is it your opinion that, of course, you're working for the company, but that, is it your considered opinion that
Yes,
these investments need to be made?
Yes, sir. There was a representative of Texas Heating Company that does theatrical equipment rigging inspections that did a report. At that time, he did an extensive report on the condition of the rigging systems at Jacob Brown and the rigging systems at the Performing Arts Center. And he works independently of our sales department, so he just wrote the report and presented it for consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
10 years ago.
No,
I told you, he said.
10 years ago. We changed,
I can remember back that far.
I can't.
the committee is recommending option B to award RFP 22-03 for the theatrical equipment replacement to Texas Scenic Company, Inc. for base proposal 1, 2, and alternate proposal in the amount of $640,595 and authorize President Rodriguez to execute the contract as presented.
There's a motion on the
Second.
floor. There's a second. Now the discussion.
We've discussed it.
No.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is
Consideration and possible action to approve annual contract amendment for campus custodial services through RFP 18-05 for fiscal year 2021-2022. Dr. Figueroa?
Thank you, Ms. Sines. Before you have for consideration and possible action to approve an amendment to the RFP 1805 for campus custodial services. As you might recall, last May, you approved the last amendment to this contract, or the last renewal that will be ending on August of this year for campus custodial services. During COVID, when we were working, our students were remotely, Marcy's had reduced our cost because we didn't have students here day to day. Once we came back, everybody on campus, both students and staff, there is a greater need to clean services at an extent higher than what we had before. So the original amount that we brought forward to you back in May included the regular cleaning that we had before COVID. So what we're proposing here is to increase that contract by $166,630, which is the amount where we're asking Marcy's to do additional cleaning and disinfection given the COVID. These expenses, since they're strictly COVID-related, will come from the CARES Act. The college pays the normal cleaning that we had been paying for before, but the addition comes out of CARES because that's an additional expense.
And is that a reasonable amount?
That's, yes, sir. Compared to other companies we've researched, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Science, do you have a motion?
Yes, to approve Campus Custodial Services Contract Amendment with Marcis and Associates, Inc. for additional employees through RFP-18-05 and authorize President to execute the purchase order contract.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item number 9, facilities update. Dr. Figueroa.
Yes, sir. Just briefly bringing you up to date on the major projects that we have on campus. Starting with the Jcpenney roof renovation project update, that project is about 65% done. Weather conditions have delayed us a little bit. We estimate the end of this month to have that project done. On the Diller's roof repairs, we've had some weather, but despite that, the interior cleaning, it's still in progress. Mold and asbestos for the second floor has been finished. Roof construction is expected to start early next month or next week. And the project is still on track, as far as we know, with the contractor to be completed by May 22nd of next year, given that weather permits. The courtroom and criminal justice program, our contractor is in process of we have a contractor now to get us the plans ready for permit submission with the city of Brownsville. But at the same time, instruction has been working with the purchasing department, and we're ready to work on the procurement of the courtroom furniture. The emergency repairs for the compost thermal plant chillers that were approved last month, they're underway, and by the next couple of weeks, we expect those repairs to be finalized.
Thank you, Dr. Figueroa. This item was for information purposes only. No action is required.
I have a question.
Yes.
What about the student center? Where are we at? The student center, the construction finishing the construction of the restrooms is underway. It will be completed by January of next year. We're also engaging into a project to close off the part where the major construction will be for the addition of restrooms in that area, and start opening up by the spring semester the student service center.
Very good.
Thank you.
When will we have a place to go get tacos on Tuesdays? The rec center. When will we have a restaurant there or a cafeteria?
Nobody
At the
applied.
Oliveira.
So we've issued that RFP 3 times. We have 2 different vendors that bidded separately on 2 options. We've asked them to submit new proposals. They've said that this is the time they submitted both proposals, and we're reviewing those to present to you, or go again for an RFP again.
And why did we ask them to submit new proposals?
Because it had, so much time had lapsed due to the pandemic.
All right.
What happened to Mr. Salazar?
He's out on leave today.
Oh, okay. Because he normally presents these items, right? Same.
I tell you what, deer corn went from $4 a bag to 12.
Oh.
So everything's going up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Science. Next item on the agenda is the policy committee. I'll call Ms. Alejandro.
The Policies Committee met on Wednesday, November 10th, 2021. Present was for myself and Ms. Aldrete, and legal counsel, of course. I'll call on Mr. Frank Perez to present this item.
Thank you. Chair Herrera, members of the board, Dr. Rodriguez, all of you have received from TASB a more than 700-page legal update.
Yeah.
I'm going to point out and highlight about 4 of those policies that directly affect the board members, so my presentation won't be very lengthy. First of all, I'd like to go to legal policy BBA, and that's found on the 49th page. There's 4 little highlights here that that are considered significant to you all. Number one, they changed it to say that each member of the board shall be a resident qualified voter of the district. That's to clarify, take away the common law interpretation of residency and make it more of a statutory scheme. In conjunction with that, we also go to the second page where they clarified it a little bit more, and they say a person may not establish residence for the purpose of influencing the outcome of a certain election. In other words, you can't move to a place in order to influence the outcome of the election. A person may not establish a residence at any place the person has not inhabited. In other words, you have to, if you're going to designate yourself as a resident of some place, that's where you need to live. And fourth, a person may not designate a previous residence at a home and fixed place of habitation unless the person inhabits the place at the time of designation and intends to remain. This is all to prevent, discourage, and do away with people moving from place to place in order to get a vote or to influence.
But how do you prove they don't?
Well, number one, the people have to sign up and swear on their forms where they live. Now, if that's not true, and we've seen that happen every once in a while, that people are questioning where people live. Well, this is to do away with the common law interpretation of residence and to make it a statutory scheme, so it's a little more less left up to interpretation by a judge or a jury. Okay?
May I ask if such a violation occurs, will the college, through its legal counsel, file suit to cure this or to prevent this from happening?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that, please?
If something like this happens, someone establishes residence for the mere goal of influencing an election, will the college file suit to prevent these violations from happening?
I hope so. I don't know that the college has the authority under the statute. I'm sorry? It would be either a resident making a complaint and going through, and Mr. Pena advises me that it'll be the Attorney General. It wouldn't necessarily be the college district pursuing that remedy.
But it could be.
I don't know that it could be.
Oh. It could be, or you don't know?
No, I don't know that it could be.
Okay,
The
all
Attorney
right.
General or other, maybe the DA will do that.
Okay, thank you.
But remember,
Mr. Peña?
remember how Jolie was kept away from running because she was a felon?
Right?
No, they give us clip.
The college did it.
I don't remember that.
Mr. Peña?
Remember?
The alternative is if a person loses because of this kind of violation, they would be able to file an election contest and be able to correct that. I think those would probably be the two main methods of enforcing this.
Thank you so much.
The next policy I'd like to point out to you is BBC legal. And it clarifies that a person elected or appointed was added, to serve as a board member must remain a resident of the college district throughout the term of office. And if a board member who ceases to reside in the college district vacates, a board member who ceases to reside in the college district vacates office automatically. So that is to clarify that.
We've had that happen. We had a board member move from Brownsville to San Antonio and refuse to resign their position on the board.
BBB legal talks about political advertising. Some of you have been through that. I guess the law is finally catching up with technology, and now texting is included as a form of political advertising. However, a single text in and of itself will not constitute political advertising, but mass texting will. That's going to leave the question open, at this time at least. If you spend the entire night texting one person at a time, does that constitute a mass texting? I would discourage that, but We can try to look up that if anybody has a question about the legal ramifications of that.
And define.
So we can text?
And what?
Wait,
Define mass.
That's very.
Well,
that's very
the
important.
statute doesn't define mass mailing.
Okay, does it say how
That's the
many,
issue.
does it say how many texts you send?
No.
So I can
Like
text my,
200.
I can text my friends?
Yes, you can, one at a time.
One at a time.
But not,
Oh, one at a time.
Okay.
well,
Nah,
but the
it
question,
does-
the question still remains, if you spend the entire night texting one after another, is that going to constitute a mass texting? I don't know the answer to that question. The statute doesn't.
Frank will have a more detailed presentation when we have pizza with the president some other day.
There you go.
Massive, okay.
BBB, now we have BBD. Because of technology, the board is going to be required once a year, at least once a year, each elected or appointed officer of a state agency, including a college district, shall complete a cybersecurity training program certified under the Government Code 2054.519. I think some of us have gone through that training. It was a 15-minute training. I'm not sure if that's going to be the same training that the board will be required to undergo. That concludes my presentation. As always, if any of you have any questions or comments, you can ask me or Mr. Peña. We'd be happy to help you.
Thank you so much.
This item was for information purposes only, and so no action is required. And this also concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Alejandro.
Muchas.
Next item will be number 11, executive session. The board will now convene an executive session as provided by Government Code, Chapter 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074. We now convene into executive. I will now call item number 12, action on executive session matters. Do I have any actions on executive session? Any motions?
I have a motion. I move that the Board of Trustees send a letter to the Cameron County Appraisal District as discussed in executive session.
Second it.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any other?
Me.
Yes.
You come first on the agenda, you're B.
Huh?
You're B. You go.
I have a motion, I move that the board accept the recommendation of administration for the naming of the law library as discussed in executive session.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Ms. Aldrete?
I move that the board accept the recommendations of administration regarding the fiscal year 2021-22 salary schedule as discussed in executive session.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a
Second.
second? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Item number 14. 13, next meeting dates are regular board meeting Thursday, December 16th, and regular board meeting on January 20th, 2022.
Okey-doke.
Item number 14, adjournment. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
There's a motion
I
to adjourn. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. We're adjourned.